Is the 50mm view myth or reality? Recently I have been talking about the 50mm lens as a natural approach in photography, something that looks natural when we view it compared to the 35mm or Taylor lenses. But is it myth or reality, or am I completely wrong here? Let's dig into that in this episode. My name is Morten Albek. I am a professional photographer and I teach at workshops around the world. So join me, sign up for the newsletter, hit the bell below so you can sign up for this YouTube channel and get notifications each time I have a new video up. And explore more on my website. You can go to that on your mobile device, on your iPad or on your laptop. It is full of articles about photography and information about my workshops. But the 50mm myth or reality, the reason I dig into this subject today is because I had a few comments lately because I was talking about the 50mm lens as being as close as it can be to the vision we see with our eyes, making this a natural choice if you want to explore and show the world in the way we see it, more or less. Some people take that very rigidly, and of course it isn't the same as our eyes. It is a 50mm lens. It is different from the vision of our eyes because that's not the same. But if we interpret it to photography and the culture in photography, the 50mm lens is what comes closest to a natural view on things. Not literally, not technically, but how we approach it, because there is a history behind the 50mm lens that goes way back. First of all, it was the first lens the Leica M system was based on. The 50mm lens was cheap and easy to build compared to other types of lenses, and it was the lens that could be narrowed down to the size for a full frame camera, or in those days a film camera fitting a small camera like the M system. That's why the 50mm lens started out in Leica history being one of the favorite lenses. Then later came other lenses like 35, 28 and Taylor lenses like the 90mm lens. But what comes closest to how we see the world with our eyes, and again don't take it literally, but historically, is the 50mm lens. It kind of mimics what we see, and I know we see a lot more, but if you focus on me, if it was in real life, your eyes will also have some distorted, blurry vision around there, softening out from the center, but what you look at is almost like the 50mm or more like 43mm. So that's the reason why I talk about the 50mm lens coming close to the vision of our eyes. Taking in consideration this is a cultural thing, it is a way we see things when we look at photography. It is a cultural and historical thing. So don't take it that literally. Of course you can see edges out here. I can even, when I focus on the camera filming me, I can vision my hand out here, but it is unfocused, it is blurry, it is unsharp, it is somewhere out there, and the same here and out here. I can sense they are there, but I cannot really see them sharp and in focus. So of course our vision with our eyes is something completely different from a lens. Also the shape of the lens is round. What you see on a film strip or on a sensor is a square, and we don't look in squares. That's just a technical plate in here. This is square like the film strip is in film cameras. So also that leaves out something that you will be able to sense or adapt in your head when you just look with your eyes. So don't take it that rigidly, don't take it that precise when I talk about that. The reason I talk about the 50mm lens coming close to a natural appearance in photography compared to what we see with our eyes is that the lens has less distortion compared to a wide angle lens, where the edges fall off and you have falling lines, especially if you go low or high and point downwards on things. then the lines will be distorted. They will not be precisely as you see them with your eyes. And your eyes makes up for a lot of things that the camera can't and the lenses can't do at all. So when talking about coming close to what the lens shows, there is differences, of course there is. But the 50mm lens doesn't have that distortion. It has a more natural, appealing look like when we look at things. At the same time, it doesn't compress things like a tele lens does. As soon as you have a 90 or 120mm lens on your camera, everything in the background will seem closer than it actually is. Here the 50mm lens comes closer to what looks natural. When you use a wide angle lens, it seems further away, as a bigger distance to the subject you're focusing on with your eyes or your camera, and that also differs it from what would look natural when you look at it with your eyes. So again, don't take it literally, but take it as a cultural thing also, and a way we have learned to look at images, because the 15mm lens dates so many years back and has been a standard lens for many cameras. Over the time, we have been used to culturally in photography to adapt things to be like the 50mm lens, being a natural view on things. The 50mm lens simply is what approximates the natural view on things with the human eyes, or so the story goes, because this is inherited by the early stages of photography where the 50mm lens was a dominating lens. It is a cultural thing, and therefore we have been adapted to look at images taken with the 50mm lens as close to natural as possible. My main point here is this is more an emotional and practical look at things more than it is a technical perfect translation between the lens and the human eye, because this doesn't exist. Henri Cartier-Bresson, named as the father of street photography and a famous photojournalist as well, said the 50mm lens was his preferred choice because it neither distorts nor compresses reality, it simply shows life as it is. Comparing to your own eyes, your eyes are not looking at everything sharp. It's peripheral, and it is blurred as soon as it comes just a little away from your center, where your eyes are centered on a subject. The camera shows everything on the same line, sharp edge to edge, at least if it is a good lens. And if you have a wide angle lens on, a 35mm for example, then you will also have sharpness from edge to edge, making this not being a natural view on things, because when I look straight at you, looking at me, I know it's a video and I can't see you in reality, but still, when we have that vision of looking at someone, everything at the sides will seem blurry, it will seem out of focus, it will not be, at least in our brain, sharp. On an image taken with a 35mm lens, or any lens at all, everything on the same focus plane will be sharp, which also differs from the way the human eye and brain takes up an image. So a camera and a lens will never reproduce the human eye as we see it exactly, but some lenses just come closer to that vision, as close as possible, with the difference there is from a camera and lens and the human eye and brain. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to discuss if this is as close as it can be or not. It just makes sense to think about how this lens can be more adaptable for producing images closer to what we see with our human eye, without compressing the background with a tele lens, without distorting the angles or making artificial big distance between the subjects as we do with a wide angle lens. And this is not pro or against any lenses. This is just an explanation of why I talk about the 50mm lens being the most natural lens, and why I favor this lens for much of my work, and in between use the 35mm when I want that different perspective of things. Any other lenses will have a more aggressive, maybe that's too strong a word, but at least a greater impact on how we view the reality than the 50mm lens does. 35, 28 millimeter and even 16 millimeter lenses make a lot of distortion, a lot of drama with dropping angles and all of that stuff that can make a great impact and a beautiful image if the scenery and all of that talks for that and your artistic mind goes for that, then do it. I just talk about how the 50mm lens makes a more natural, pleasing view on the world, which I prefer in my artistic work. And there's no pro and against one or the other, it's just a choice. Like it is a choice for a painter to use a spatula and strong moves or a very fine-haired brush to make very fine details. It's all the same in just different worlds and methods. Another thing when we try to compare, which I don't compare my eyesight on things with a lens, I just try to translate that human vision of what I see into the lens that comes closest to what I see. But the camera has that framing, it points at where it is pointed and it captures what it captures when you click the shutter button. That's completely different from our eyes. So constantly are scanning the area, and I know if something is going on out here, even though if it's a little bit blurry. I can see my oven over here, the fire is on, I can sense even almost at the back of me I have a candle light, and I can see the colors from this hitting the wall over here without looking at it. My eyes and brain constantly scan this area. The camera doesn't, it just looks straight ahead, it takes what's in the frame and that's it. But talking about an approach that seems natural, I think the 43 or the 50mm lenses are the ones that comes closest to presenting what I'm seeing without taking all of that in that is around, because as we discussed, this is part of the human eye and brain, not the camera, but this is what comes closest to what I find represents what I want to show when I hit the shutter button with my camera. I would like to present things as I vision them. I'm not trying to make a lot of drama with wide angle lenses. In between I use a 35 because that makes sense in some sceneries, but mostly I prefer the 50mm lens because that makes that natural view. And I use that lens for everything, literally everything, from sports, and we are not talking telephotos. And again, if you comment below, it's not about shooting airplanes far away, we are talking street photography and portraits, and that's it. Then I use that lens for everything that is close enough so I can use that as a creative tool. And also, when we talk about the 50mm lens, as I explain in an article here on my website, it is for full frame cameras, because as soon as you put something on a APS-C sensor that is not a full frame camera, then you change the perception, then you change the view of what the lens sees, and it begins to drag away from that natural presence of something that is natural. So the 15mm lens looking natural is on a full frame scale camera, nothing else. To sum it up, 50mm lens looking natural is about the perception and not the technical side. Saying that the 15mm lens looks natural is less about optics and more about perception. I hope this clarified just a little, or else head in and look at the article, sign up for my newsletter, know more about the workshops I have around Europe next year. I hope to see you there. There are 2 and 3 days workshops. The 3 days workshops includes post-production in Lightroom, and I would love to see you out there on the streets in Paris, Rome, Copenhagen, Berlin, or other places that are coming up in the future. Thank you for watching.